All right. Okay. Welcome, everyone. It's our December 20th policy meeting, last one of our year. We have everyone here today, and Paige can join us now that she's done volleyballing. Welcome, Paige.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah, so we just kind of all take our turn saying whatever we want. So feel free to jump in whenever you want. Don't feel like you have to say anything if you don't want to. But it's a very casual, easy going setting, I think, at least. Maybe that's because I'm in charge of it. Okay, so we have our agenda. I don't know if people have opinions on where we should start, if we just want to work through it.
I'm good with going in order.
Yeah.
Number one.
Okay. All right, first on our agenda is policy 8130.2, workplace violence prevention. And I believe this is because there's been some changes to the law and regulations in the state. So if you guys want to open, I think Frank started one called draft.
So can I explain it just really quick, a
Yes,
little bit
please
about
do.
it? And I drafted a letter that will go out to staff as well, because we have to. So this is a new regulation that's come out. It's been in the private workforce for a long time. And now it's kind of switching over to public school areas. We have to have this. PESH has been involved. The governor's been involved. It's pretty, and what we've been doing is we've been working with our legal and we've been working with our health and safety through NARIC. So NARIC and BOCES has a health and safety coordination. We pay for that service, similar to like NISBA policies, as do many other school districts in the capital region and beyond. They are creating basically the handbooks, like, you know, what we need to do. They're working with PESH, they're working with legal. So it kind of like saying what we do with our safety plan, they're helping us create the playbook
Nice.
of what we have to do. So it's not, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not trying to do something differently than we know how to. And we're not the professionals on this, right?
Right.
So we are doing it. The policy itself is taking from the state guidance and our attorney. I basically took their two policies that they sent and I melded the best parts of both of them together. And that's where the policy is coming from. It's pretty much boilerplate. The reason why we have this is basically workplace violence is any physical assault or active aggressive behavior that occurs where a public employee performs any work-related duty in the course of his or her employment. So I'm actually reading what's going in the letter. And so it's any attempt or threat of verbal or physical to inflict physical injury on an employee, intentional display of force, intentional wrongful physical contact, and stalking an employee with interest in causing fear. So it's not the sexual harassment component. That is already within another one. This is more of the physical aspect of it.
Okay.
And one of the things that we have to do as part of the policy, it's not just a notification, it's also an evaluation. So we have to do a yearly evaluation by using our worker comps, any of our complaints that we have. And there's an evaluation rubric that I have developed. And I believe I shared that all with you as well. So you can see the work that's going into it. And all of this has to have conversations with your collective bargaining units.
Okay.
So we have 3 collective bargaining units. All 3 collective bargaining units have to look at the workplace program, not the policy, but the program itself. And they have to be able to have input on it as well. And that's per the PESH and the governor. So I think I gave you the 3-second version of it.
That's good. Yep. I appreciate that.
So I had one substantive comment.
Okay.
Which was in the paragraph that starts workplace violence is defined. That last, when such stalking has arisen, it's just, I don't think you need that language. Or just put a period after employee.
I'll take care
I
of that.
agree with that. Okay with that?
Yep.
Good page.
So
This,
I have to, so I've asked for that, like the designated contact person. You have to have a designated contact person who's an oversight coordinator of it by like the regulation itself. So I'm just going to put myself in it for now. And then we can use committees. So I've done some checking on that component.
okay,
So we'll use committees or designees afterwards for reporting purposes, but there has to be one oversight person for full contact. And I've checked on that multiple different times because I've asked other districts too.
so, but we just have the superintendent hanging out. I
Yeah,
think-
because
Is that to remind yourself?
that was to remind myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think we could move it to the end and just do like a designated contact person section.
Well, that's what they wanted here, the designated contact person, building administrator, or direct supervisor. That's what the template from both PESH and our attorneys had both of that in there. and NISBA.
Yeah, I mean, we can leave it where it is and just do a
Yeah, it's kind of sitting there in the
introductory
middle of
Yeah,
nowhere.
sentence.
it's so weird, isn't it? That's why,
Yeah. We can just do,
Well, first of all, you're gonna put a period after employee in that second paragraph. And
It's-
drop the
it's
last,
there.
that last phrase. Right?
yeah, it's
Yeah, I did it.
already done on my version.
yep, I
Oh,
did
it's Not
it.
done on
You
my
must
book.
be, are you connected to the internet?
Mine's draft, not in draft.
Oh, yeah, you're in the right one.
So,
Are
You might
you
not be on the
connected to
internet.
the internet?
Looks like it.
Should I just write the designated contact person for the district is the superintendent of schools and should be contacted with any and all complaints or something like that?
Yeah. And then,
I don't know if that's a good idea. I think it could be where somebody's more comfortable talking to the building administrator or direct supervisor.
So that's what I wanted. But you have to have one contact person designated as a workplace violence prevention coordinator. So you can have it then done by
Well, you
committee or
can put that
designee,
too.
but you have to have that. That's why, because it has that designated contact person. And then it has that kind of specific thing. They said you have to have one person in the policy that is the designated person. I think it should be the superintendent and or designee. That's kind of where my thought process was. But I was being told that you still have to have one person as a coordinator. I would say we put in the policy, the superintendent or designee will be the coordinated person. Because our program will say building administrator, supervisor, it will have a listing of people
here, I'm gonna take.
in the
a crack at
workplace
it.
program prevention packet and training. I didn't like this individual thing either, Tim, to be honest with you.
Let me,
Well, you could make the statement, superintendent, or the, whatever you titled, said district workplace coordinator, it will be the superintendent, period.
Yeah.
It could just be in a sentence somewhere. This little form here doesn't belong where it is. I don't know why it's sitting there in the middle of two paragraphs.
I agree.
Yeah, I know. So I think we should move it.
A lot of places are making their either their HR person or their athletic director
Are you saying
is the person. 'Cause
No,
athletic
I'm not
director
getting
is
it. I don't know
HR.
why I'm not getting any of that.
I think we can take that out, to be honest with you.
Like, see how, yeah, I can see her typing, but you.
I just-
I'm not getting any of that, no. I don't know why.
you might not be connected to the internet, Tim. I just added a sentence, the superintendent will serve as the designated contact person for purposes of this policy,
I think that's
Yeah.
right.
and then delete this block.
Yeah. I don't like this.
This would go in a reg,
Right?
or in the program itself.
That's what it should be.
Yeah.
I don't think it, and that's what I was complaining about. I don't think it belongs in the policy.
Yeah, or just,
Okay, it'll be in the program. And the
Yep.
program will
I
have,
don't know.
we're using committee-based anyways for that.
Makes no sense.
No, sorry.
if there's a citation to the law that specifies designated contact person,
I think we're
we could add that in, but otherwise, I think just saying for purposes of this policy solves it.
perfect.
That's fine with me. But poor Tim can't see anything.
I can't see it, but I don't know why.
His isn't like live.
Does he have
He's got
access to
internet.
guest?
Got
Or
internet.
maybe he's like, he's logged in up here. Will you show him the one you're on? Click on it again. It says it's locked, but it says he's connected.
You're on your iPhone, Tim. That's why you're hooked up on your person.
Take this off.
I'll do that. Look on that.
Here. Get rid of, how do I get rid of that? Maybe I'm okay now.
Yeah.
No, that's how it looks before.
Refresh.
Here?
That,
Here.
yeah, that one.
And now let's go down.
Yeah.
I don't even have any of the comments, so. I don't know what's happening.
I don't get it.
I don't either.
I don't mean to laugh.
I really hate Google.
Yeah, I don't like Google.
I know. Google Docs is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't see any comments anymore, so maybe that's why you don't have any.
Okay.
I think we've resolved them all.
But you still have that, and
Still have
that's
that,
gone, yeah.
and I have one stalking as arisen. I got like an original.
Well, maybe
I'll
you're in
go
a different
back.
file.
You might be.
Are you in the draft 8130.2?
Yes, he is.
Damn.
Is that all that people had for this then? I didn't have any comments on it.
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Are we good with it?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. Paige, do you have any?
I think it looks okay.
Okay.
So it's gotta go up for a first read, right?
Well,
Well, we have an 8130
I mean, we're gonna miss the
fourth cutoff anyway.
January 4th
So-
cutoff.
What was said to me by, health and safety was, Pesh is okay as long as we're working on everything and show our due diligence that we have our program, all of our appendixes, our letters that's going out to staff, that will be considered in compliance
So,
as long as it's a work in progress.
so if we post it on the 4th.
Yeah.
Along with the agenda,
I think we're fine.
then I think we're good.
Yeah, as long as we have everything and we're working on it, I've disseminated to our collective bargaining units, I sent out a notification to staff, and we've worked on the board policy, we're technically in compliance with what in Pesh's eyes.
Hey,
So is that
Tim
first
is
read
up and
though?
live
Or
again.
is that,
Live.
I don't know.
I still don't know if it's
Uh,
first
let
read or
me
not, because it's a new section,
Right.
but same policy.
So let me work it with you.
Jess wouldn't know that though.
My guess is it's the first read because you don't have that 8130.2.
Yeah. It's fine to do first read, right?
Yeah, we only have 8130, and the way
Right.
we list some of our other point ones, they're listed as separate policies.
Okay.
So,
So it'll be first read at our next meeting.
And I sent a final, I wrote final on it.
You did,
and
I saw
sent it-
that.
And I just shared it with Jessica. I figured after they're done too, I will share them at this meeting with her, so that, and write notes saying this is going on, so that way it's like doubling up our conversations
Yes.
and communications, if that
And
works.
she'll know to like clean up all the
Cleaning.
NISBA
I
stuff.
actually wrote clean it all
Okay.
up too.
Yep.
Cause
And thank you, Jess,
Yeah.
thank you.
for doing all that for us, so we don't have to.
perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
shall we move on to 5451?
Mhm.
And this, I think was just us to review our existing policy. To make sure we're still good with it.
So my thoughts are, after taking a closer look at the NISBA student health policy,
Mhm.
it's broader than what we have in our student health and
Mhm.
like life-threatening allergies policies, including like, emergency care. Like, I think we incorporated the naloxone stuff already, but there might be, it might be worthwhile to get rid of 5451 and incorporate that into a broader, is it 5420? That was kind of where
Yeah,
I
5420.
was leaning on these. I would be fine with leaving our 5451 as is, because I don't have any problems with it. I think
Right.
it's fine.
I felt the same way.
I think it's comprehensive in comparison to what
Oh, yeah.
you're obligated to have as a board
Yes.
policy. It's an extremely comprehensive policy.
Yeah, I think there's some things that aren't as full as they could be in our current 5420.
Okay.
The one thing that jumped out at me was emergency care, and particularly following our public settling of a lawsuit
Right.
having to do with this issue. We might want to go back over that.
Tell me, I'm looking at the policy and it's fine. But as I read it, I was thinking, who's responsible for what? And is that regulation? I wasn't quite sure.
A lot of this goes down to a 504 or healthcare plan that goes along with notifications into the district, so it guides what those would be. And then those regulations that go along with it.
50, oh,
Yeah, so like for like a health
Oh.
issue or health impairment, like if a child has an allergic reaction.
I'm just reading, if you read this policy,
Mhm.
outsider looking in.
Yeah.
Describes all these symptoms and
Yep.
things we should be careful about, but it doesn't make any indication of who's responsible for this. Is there a teacher? Is there healthcare workers? Are there
All of the above.
cafeteria? Yeah. Not addressed in any of this.
It's addressed in,
I
your-
think it does
it's the
talk
law
about
and regulations
individuals.
it's addressed in. So like with healthcare and nurses and things like that, you don't have to do as much as that policy states. So that's the important thing, is that the law states that you have to have a healthcare plan. The law states that you have to make sure that you're safeguarding a student's health and well-being. It doesn't give the finite examples of what's in this policy.
Yeah, but I think a lot of what you're looking for, Tim, is in the reg.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
And we have a reg, 5451R, that identifies, like, identification of students with severe allergies. It's the responsibility of a student's parent
There
guardian
you
to
go.
do this.
That's exactly what I'm
This
looking for.
next paragraph,
So
the
I wasn't
school
reading
nurse
the
will
R.
do
Right.
this. The
That's
student's parent
I
guardian.
thought it might be in the red, but I couldn't. I had to
Yeah.
read this part.
So,
That's
I
fine.
think it's
I'm fine.
spelled
As long
out.
as it's spelled out here.
yeah, but I think the larger policy issue, or at least our approach, is that it's everyone's responsibility.
Okay, I get that. But my point being, some people, because I've had to deal with this. Some people are way more aware of it
Mhm,
than others.
Absolutely.
Mom and dad, way aware of it.
Mhm.
Other people who actually work around this kid or around, no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out, who's responsible for doing what and providing assurances
Yeah.
back to the family that this kid's gonna be safe, or as safe as possibly can.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's covered in the reg.
I think you're right.
Yeah. There's different, in terms of a process section, there's sections for identification of
Right.
students with severe allergies,
It's the
Planning.
responsibility of students, parents, guardians to promptly
Yeah.
notify. That's right.
and then planning for students with severe allergies.
No, I had not read this piece, so this is where it's all, these were my questions.
Yeah, and then,
Who has to do what? You got
Yeah.
it all right here.
and then, communication plan.
Yeah.
I think we got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
It looks like anaphylaxis is spelled wrong. In the title.
Oh, yeah.
We've had this policy for multiple years now.
Well, when it's underlined, that should tell you something, right? Mine's got a little red underline.
does-
Yeah, mine does too.
Which
Mine
one?
doesn't.
There it is.
Mine
I just
doesn't.
changed it.
Mine doesn't have an underline.
Mine did.
How do you spell it correctly?
Yeah,
No,
I
he
don't
fixed
know.
it.
How
Tim
do you
fixed it.
spell it?
Yeah, it's spelled right.
Tim
There
fixed
was
it.
like
I
an
just
S
changed it.
in between the A and the N.
Maybe you and I are the
Last
No, I don't
kiss.
have that on mine.
Oh, okay.
That's funny.
But it's only fixed here, so that means it needs to be fixed on.
Let me
if you
check
wanna
the
make a
website.
note. Yeah,
I'm gonna go to the
Oh.
website and actually see if it's,
see if it's spelled wrong there, or
Yeah.
if something happened here.
let me check the website quick. 5451, we said?
Yeah,
I think
And
it's
in the
correct.
R. in 5451R is where I
Yeah.
saw it.
Right, that's where it was. The R.
Oh, yes, yep, the catch page.
It's good now.
It's wrong
It's
on
wrong.
the web?
Yep.
Okay,
I'll send an email to Jess.
okay, thanks.
I would
So-
not change it on the website if I wanted to.
Do we want to put
spelling
5420 on our future list? 5420,
5420.
should we put it on our future list to look at our 5420?
I mean, I'll defer to everybody else. We do have a sentence in there about emergency care, but we don't have all the language that's in the NISBA policy.
Yeah, why not? I'll put
I
it on
think
the
it's,
list.
I think
Why
it's
not?
worth it,
Yeah.
just particularly because we've had an issue.
NISBA makes a policy for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm all
No,
good
I-
with putting everything that, like, honestly, 9 times out of 10, I would say just, they vet those extremely well.
Yeah, and I think we probably have a cross-reference right now to 5421, but let me double check that while we're
The only
looking.
thing I worry about with the cross-reference, and I think it's gonna come up on a future one, this meeting, is do we have the same intent, the same language, the same concepts in both,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
both
think
that are cross-referenced?
I'm gonna give credit to Tricia on this one. She's done a really good job of noting our cross references.
Uh,
And I think also keeping us on track and making sure that we're comparing them. Cause
because when we,
I don't think they all do, but I think ones when we review,
well, I bring this up because I sometimes worry that cross-referencing and saying, see this one.
Yeah.
And you go to that one and it says something different.
we found multiple issues with that.
Right,
Through
then,
this policy.
you know, that's
Yeah.
not helpful that
well,
way.
No.
this one doesn't even have a cross-reference to 54.
No, it doesn't.
So, yeah, it's worth looking at 5420.
I'll put that on our list.
I'm fine with 5451 and 5451R as is.
I am too.
Me too.
Do we do anything to show that we reviewed it or just leave the dates the way they are?
You don't have to,
I know we don't have to. Is it helpful at all to add reviewed in 2023 or not really? Probably doesn't matter.
Why don't we do them both as a group, just in,
Oh,
Like,
that's a good idea.
just in case
When we
there's
bring through
any
5420, we'll, okay.
changes to,
well, even if you,
to address
Well, even
Tim's
if you don't
point.
do anything, I think if you say, you know, last reviewed,
Last reviewed.
well, even if you put it on the policy committee on your report and you say reviewed as a, reviewed these in policy committee, and at least then it's on your agenda saying that you did it. Like then you have,
Yeah, I just didn't know if
Something.
it helps, when we look at the dates,
Yeah.
we're like, oh, this is
I've never
policy
seen, now I've had that conversation before in other
from
boards.
2009.
And the answer that we ended up following in another place was they didn't think it was worth it to do that. They
Okay.
just wanted to have it on its minutes somewhere else saying that, there's documentation that we did it, but they didn't feel it was important to do it on the policy itself.
Okay.
I'm gonna spell this wrong.
So here, and here's another thing. This is a reason why we might want to look at 5451. It doesn't cross,
5420.
well, 5451 does not cross-reference 5420.
Oh, okay. You mean with the full board?
Yeah, I'm just saying
Yeah.
when we,
When we
When we
bring it as a
look at-
package.
yeah, we bring them as a package. Especially since 5451 is currently in NISBA's 5420.
Right. Okay. I think that's a good idea.
So we're gonna review 5420.
At a future meeting.
Okay.
And if we make changes, which I think we probably will, we'll make sure we update any
Got it.
cross-referencing and we'll bring them as a package to the full board when they're ready to go to the full board, when 5420 is.
Before. With
That's-
NISBA's.
Yeah.
Using NISBA's policy as the basis, maybe?
Yeah, why don't we start with that as a draft?
Yep.
Okay.
Which we do have in here right now, so we can just, we
Into
have the
the next
NISBA's, so
meeting.
for the next meeting, we can just
Yeah.
start with one of those as draft. Okay. So substitute policy,
I typed that in, I got substitute teachers, and then there's comments in here, so I assume that's what we're needing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cause it doesn't have a number.
No.
It's just,
So at the top of page 2, it
it's a
says
substitute.
policy 6220.
Yeah, cause we stole it.
it looks like it's from NYCRR, not from NISBA.
Okay.
That's the other.
No, that's from a friend of mine who's also, they're doing exactly the same thing. I said, I'm looking at doing a sub policy, like, oh my gosh, so are we. This is our draft one that we're using, so. Yeah, we don't have a substitute policy, so we'd have to find a number for it.
Well, you asked the question, should there be any basic criteria?
Mhm.
And I said, yes. You asked 1 or 2 years of college, I said 2. I understand, we've talked about supply. And,
Well, I have a recommendation for you.
okay,
Let's hear. it.
Okay.
So I spoke to the admin and I asked them those same questions. And I said, you're functioning in your buildings. You need to understand what you have. So we have a very long conversation. Their recommendation, so right now, BOCES does not have to have, and New York State, it says, you do not need to have a college or associate's degree to substitute in the school district. So that is school board and driven and how you want it. They said, no matter what, it should be at least 2 years out of out of high school before you sub. So 2 years removed from school to sub as a teacher. Now, some school districts say it's an associate's degree. We have substitutes, and that's the only thing I'm gonna say to you.
You're going where I was.
2
gonna
years
go.
out, but you've never gone to
But here's the thing, but
any college.
we have substitutes that are amazing substitutes that have been in the workforce, have done other things that maybe have never been, like, they went straight to the workforce. They've done 30,
Teachers.
Nope.
as substitute, not as
That's what
teachers.
this policy is, substitute teacher.
They've done substitute teaching for us, but they don't have a college degree or associate's degree, but they still sub for us. Like, they're 30 years old, 35 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. So you're limiting by saying college degree. I just want to say that, like,
And we have substitutes that we like to use, I'm guessing, that if we put this in place, we will
We
no
would lose.
longer be able to use.
I don't understand the value of requiring college. Like, you could be really great at something and not go to
Right.
college.
that's why I think it changed, the regulations changed where you don't need a college degree any longer to be a
Yeah, or you
substitute
could go to
teacher.
college for electrical
Yeah,
engineering.
what's that got to do with,
and
right,
Subbing in an English class, but
right.
It
I'm,
used to be an associate's degree was like the standard, and then that shifted a while back.
I mean, would it be any different when you're talking about a long-term sub versus like coming in for the day?
Well,
or-
long-term sub, you have to be certified. After
Okay.
40 days, you have to.
Oh,
have
right.
certification.
Okay.
Like that.
Yes, I see
I
that
can
now.
see in certain fields, electrical engineering, maybe there is some, but as a standard, give me some educational background, please. As a teacher, that's what I would want. I would expect. This lowering of expectations is just driving me crazy here. We're doing it on everything.
Mhm.
And this one, it sounds like I need a warm body.
You do.
I think that's where we are though. Yeah.
And sometimes I gotta be very honest with you, sometimes it's not about teaching, it's about supervision and liability. Like, and there comes those points where you need to have someone in that room who can turn on a video or have the kids read a book and do do like their Google homework and be there. Cause right now, some of the stuff in high school, and Paige might be able to answer this question better than me. You don't need a certified teacher in the room for a substitute. Sometimes the teachers can make really good sub plans, put everything on Google Classroom, have all the stuff that's already there. And for that one day, you just need supervision.
Yeah, I don't think in the past 3 years a sub has actually taught me stuff. The teachers will have a worksheet ready and stuff because they never know what they're gonna get, so they don't wanna like give a sub plan and have the expectation of a sub teaching without knowing if the sub is gonna be able to do that.
And Tim, I do agree with you. I understand where you're
So
coming
it's
from.
gonna be a limit, say, if you're gonna be more than X number of days.
There is.
Well,
That's
kind of.
40
40.
right there.
But that's in the commissioner, the education department's commissioner's regulations.
Comes right out of there.
I mean, we didn't make this up.
This comes right out of the regulations.
Cause I looked at some of this and went, 40, like, should it be less? But then I was like, oh, these are the commissioner's regulations, like. I don't think we can be any more stringent.
Hmm.
I know the big thing was with the admin was it, and then they got in a little bit of a disagreement for a certified for a teaching sub. They said you have to have at least 2 years outside of high school. You gotta be at least 2 years removed from high school.
What did they feel that did? A level of maturity?
Level of maturity, kind of like, giving, especially kids who are going to college or going out. And also, it came down to also this is you're hiring a sub, you have the discretion where to put them, but do I want an 18-year-old substitute working with 17-year-old students?
Mhm.
Especially if they've come from this district before, they already have friends, they already have like, there's a connection there or a liability concern that you're like, do I want to be the person with the microphone in front of me answering those questions?
Have we done that?
Elementary school. They've never worked in the high school. So the practice has been, if we have someone who's like 18 or 19 that is sub for us after, like, they say they come home from college, they don't work at same age appropriate levels. They go down to the elementary school and they're removed from those age groups. That's been the practice of what we've done here.
And we don't have any options otherwise. There's not other people who would be available to us.
There is, we just have to, our recommendation.
I mean, we approve a BOCES sub list
No,
every,
that's because the BOCES sub list is whoever BOCES gets to sub. It doesn't mean they're intentionally subbing here.
I understand.
It's everyone who goes there, and they're not all always here. It's still, we're still struggling to get subs, as is every other district. We were also talked about, and that was another thing that I wanted to recommend on this is, no matter what, we hire our own subs here. That's been the practice, and we do BOCES. The recommendation that I'm gonna make is, if we do hire our own subs, they still have to go through the BOCES certification process. The reason why we've hired our own subs before, let's say we have somebody that you know who is your neighbor and was a former teacher, or had 3 years of school and they want to work as a substitute, and we need a sub, we can get them on sooner. BOCES, it takes 7 to 8 weeks to go through the processes. So if we vet them, we go through them, we get them on, but we still want them. I still think they should go through the BOCES sub service. So all of our subs should all go through that sub-service plan.
Is that our current procedure?
It is not, but they also
Okay.
do all the mandated trainings, and they keep them up on the mandated trainings. So we wouldn't have to be
Well,
responsible.
we could hire them to begin tomorrow.
Yep.
But then they go through a training program subsequently.
So,
Then that covers all the mandated trainings that they would have to do yearly, and any of the other things that have to come up.
so I don't know about the BOCES training program. Like, is there a certain period of time in which it's reasonable to have completed all of it?
Yeah.
What is that, 6 months?
It's
a
like 6
year,
months, yeah.
like- Cause I think we'd wanna say that.
I don't know.
Or we can say, and this is what other districts have done, we stop hiring our own substitutes. Every substitute, and there are districts that neighbor us, that if you want to be a substitute in the district, you only go through BOCES. We hire no Voorheesville substitutes.
What implication would that have immediately?
Timeframes. So since we already have them,
Well,
right?
How
We
many
already have
people
them.
do, yeah.
Well, we have some that are already there, but we would just make them, since they're already grandfathered in,
Oh,
we would just have them go through the BOCES process.
but you wouldn't do it that way anymore.
But we just, from that point forward, we wouldn't hire our own. We'd always have them go through BOCES.
I mean,
It just takes time. It's 7 to 8 weeks out.
isn't the risk of using BOCES only that we may not be the employer of choice? Right, so if Bethlehem all of a sudden decides they're gonna pay their subs $2 an hour more,
Well, there's some places that do pay their subs $160. Or 100, like, there are some payment ones that are way up there. So what happens is, let's say Tricia wants a sub for us. And she's like, I want a sub for Voorheesville, I want to do it. All right, well, great. And then all of a sudden she gets on the BOCES list and she can go, well, what's Bethlehem look like? And you can click the Bethlehem box, and all of a sudden you get called, and let's say they're paying you $300 a day. Well, you're going to Bethlehem. But that's few and far between. I think people who want to work here. Especially like when people want to sub here that live in our community. There's a lot of people who do that because it's easy. They like our community, their kids go here, and they're familiar with it. So, that has worked for us. It's been a very big positive. We have some really outstanding substitutes that come in a lot for us that are all community members.
Mhm.
Some are through BOCES and some are through us. And that was one of the things when I started looking at this, there's a discrepancy here that we just need to
Do
clean up.
most of those people have any sort of credential?
Some do, some don't.
I don't want to sound dismissive. It sounds like they're willing to low bid a warm body. And that just bothers me. I would much rather, in front of kids, serving in a teaching capacity, have somebody who is more qualified than that.
So you're saying you want them to have an actual education,
Well, I would say
college,
2 years of college.
but it could be electrical engineering.
I mean, anything. I don't get.
Why are
I
they
just-
more qualified to teach than
I
someone
think
that?
there's a maturity level and educational, somebody who's been,
So you're saying 2 years of schooling, either
Yeah.
vocational and or
I mean, there's a
higher
lot of
education.
people that are in all kinds of industries that I start out as a poli-sci major and I end up being a communication specialist. I mean, I get those transfers, but I want some educational background, some knowledge that one is able to impart and to have some gravitas in front of these kids who are in their control or in their care.
But why are you assuming someone that doesn't go to college doesn't have that?
I think it's a criteria that we should establish as an educational institution. I think we're dismissing it. And I don't think we should. I think we are an educational institution here to develop young people for their next stage in life. And I believe that we should have people who have gone to that next stage in life, had some experience, and are able to impart that, as a substitute teacher.
But we are educating people to go on, not necessarily to college. So why is this only for the kids that go to college?
I just think you gotta have some criteria for who's coming in here. I have seen on our sub list that we've hired people who are 18, 19 years old, who have never been to college.
That's not true.
We had a couple that
They were going to college for education, the majority of them. Or
maybe
were in
they're
college.
gonna start next
Or
season.
they were in college.
Okay. I'll give you that.
They've always been, they've had 1 year through.
I understand your concern, Tim. I'm just concerned about the supply and demand problem. There are gonna be times where we need a body in a classroom, and I hate that that's where we are as a parent, as a community member, but I
I think I have a
think that's where we
compromise, if
are.
you'd
What's
like.
your compromise?
So I think
language
I have
then?
a compromise. You could say 2 years vocational or higher education for a substitute teacher, 2 years removed from high school for a teacher aide or teacher assistant substitute. So a teacher aide or teacher assistant does not need a 2-year degree to work in a school district. They wouldn't just get their certifications or anything.
They're there accompanied by a teacher.
Yep.
Whole different game for me. I'm thinking substitute is in the room alone.
And now I just would have to say, if we were to enact that, I would have to look at the BOCES roster right now and see who's subbing through us for BOCES, who maybe doesn't have a college, 2 years of college. I don't know if that's true or not.
I need
I
to
would
be
have
willing
to
to grandfather in at this point. But the other thing I'd say to you is, I don't know if we must commit to a 40-day commissioner's regulation. Because to me, if it was gonna be somebody who's gonna be in the classroom as a substitute more
That's
than
long.
X,
That's long-term leave.
yeah.
That's what the 40 days is, and that's the regs for 40 days. And
Yeah.
we've used non-certified teachers for 40 days, and they've done very, very well. Like, I'm not gonna say the specifics of that, but we did have an incident where we had to use a 40-day person who didn't have their certificate. And
Well,
it was,
And I'm probably sounding discriminatory here, but when I start thinking, you start talking about 40 days, not having a certificate, I hope they have some experiences
well, I think
and
it's
they're not
important.
just an
Yeah.
18-year-old warm body.
Well, I think it's important to know too, is just because the policy says X, there's still a hiring criteria that has to go through it.
Absolutely.
Reference checks have to get done, fingerprinting has to get done. They go through a process of interviews with the principal. So, just because somebody interviews and they have, they're 2 years out, maybe they've worked at a bank and not worked at school, it doesn't mean they're gonna get hired for the job. They still have to go through the process and be have the capabilities needed to be in the classroom. I will say that I know that the administration is not, recommending or interviewing through candidates who aren't qualified to do the position. And we've had, and I just want to be clear too, is there's times that people come from BOCES that we put them on the list saying they're not welcome back, and they have certificates.
Yeah.
So I recently anyways, that happens sometimes too, when we have certificate people who are subbing for us that we say, no, they're not going to sub here any longer. So I get it. And I do see where you're coming from. I do respect that and I understand it. I think that's just a conversation at the board. You just need to direct us, and me where you want me to go with that sub policy. I'm putting this together because there is really no consistency in our subbing, right? And I just want to put a nice criteria up on how we do it, clarify who comes, who doesn't come, what the requirements are, and clarify if we're hiring as a board or if we're going through BOCES, what those things look like, because right now it's like mishmash.
I understand. I'm just thinking of a person's first job out of high school.
Could have worked during high school.
Could have worked or but first professional job. I'm gonna put them in front of a group of 25 kids
As a teacher assistant.
We're talking substitute here.
Mhm.
Not teacher assistant. I don't have a problem with. You got a teacher in the room, You got an 18-year-old assistant, whatever, I'm good. But when we're talking about first job, kid out of high school, I'm thinking of myself, my kid. First job, kid out of high school, put him in front of a classroom of 25 kids. Okay, kid, make it happen.
Yeah, but on the flip
I
side of
don't
that,
get it.
I'm thinking of, some babysitters, nannies that I've used in the past who were in high school, who, had experience in a daycare, let's say, and had worked around kids and were really good at it. And
25 of them
not,
for
well,
with a
not,
lesson
I mean,
plan?
no, there are ratios, right, in daycares that are state mandated, but
I also think it comes down to, again, respectfully, the perception that you're painting, I don't think is the perception of what actually occurs in a classroom or happens in the school district.
Right.
And when we've had 18, 19-year-old kids who did their 1 year out, they're either A, supervising a classroom that's watching a video, or their teacher assistants helping out in a room. And we're not having them do long-term timeframes. We don't have a 19-year-old in a room for 20
What would
days
be-
because we know that wouldn't be strong instructional components, right?
Okay, how many days?
A day. If we need a
That's
sub, and
nothing.
we have,
Okay. Is it possible that the policy could establish some longevity regarding our willingness to accept this type of, employment? A week? I don't know,
that comes to, so the board can do,
not
again,
more than 5
the board
days.
can choose any direction that you want
I
to go, right? The
understand.
board has discretion on those items. It comes down to, does the board want to have discretion and do that, or do you want to give the discretion to the building administrator or supervisor for them to make those decisions of what they feel is an instructional best for their buildings? I think for me, those are the two questions, right? I wouldn't go down to a building right now and tell a principal how to do that because I don't know what's in there, right? I don't know that building. So we can set the guidelines saying, here's the set expectation, or you can give them the discretion.
When we still had like a French program, our teacher was absent for like 3 weeks. And we had a woman come in who actually knew French and she was like really competent, but I don't think that she would have even met that criteria. So just like the way I look at it, I feel like the building administrators can kind of avoid like the issue that you're like worried about. Cause I think that they know like this person shouldn't be teaching a class for 20 days if they're not competent. Like they belong in a class where they're just overseeing a worksheet, cause people know like what the sub is gonna be doing too.
But if we've come to this conclusion, we need a warm body and there's no one else available, and we need somebody for 20 days, no matter the fact that they can't teach, we're gonna accept them to just hold down the fort for 20 days.
I've had a lot of subs who have gone to college who I feel like are less qualified than some of the subs I've had who haven't personally.
And are you talking 20 consecutive days?
She was.
Well, I gotta be very honest with you. Again, that is principal discretion. If I had a substitute and I had a certified teacher, let's use PE, right? Well, let's use French. If I had a certified substitute teacher in math, or I had a person who was French speaking, who worked in a bank for 2 years, I'm choosing the French speaking teacher over the person who was certified in math because those kids will actually get something out of it. We can always have the lessons crafted and created, right? Because that's what we've done before. I've done that in other districts where I have another teacher craft the lessons and help with the curriculum, or the department chair help craft the curriculum and write that. And then the substitute helps them do it, right? We have frameworks in schools to ensure that the instruction is soft. Nobody in a district wants the instruction in a classroom not to be merited and worthwhile for the kid, right? It doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do the kids any good. So I would use that example. I would hire someone who has the experience in that content area. And I've done that for art before. I've hired someone who has experience in art who was not a certificated teacher. I've done that for PE and I've done it for music. So those are ones that I have done that in.
Well, I'm gonna guess that the person you're describing was older than 18.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably just describing what I would like to see as somebody who has some experience in life beyond high school. And also, that they are limited, and this I do think allows for discretion, but there's some limits put on how long we're going to have somebody operate in a substitute capacity who has not had those life experiences, college, whatever, afterwards, after high school. So I don't know. I would be a little more strict as to who I would hire regarding that stuff.
But for board policy,
I understand.
I drafted this and I'm just writing an example. And I'd like to do the research on it a little bit too, to see how that would impact us or what our current practices are, BOCES practices are. 2 years of schooling or vocational training for substitute teacher, 2 years of schooling, vocational training, or workforce experience for support staff.
We did again.
2 years of schooling or vocational training for substitute teacher, 2 years of schooling, vocational training, workforce experience for support staff,
Support staff being,
aides, assistants.
this was about substitutes.
Correct.
That's what I was really focused on. Somebody who's going to be in the classroom on their own.
Teacher assistant, teacher aide, they can be as well.
Okay,
Like, there's times where teacher assistants will cover lunchrooms, they'll do the recess, there's assistants that do the L
I'm
rooms.
not as concerned about
But
that.
they're substitutes. Like, if we're doing that's part of the substitute process.
Could it just be like 2 years of schooling if they're like below a certain age? Cause like, is that more what you're worried about? Like
Well,
2
I
years of
cannot be
schooling if you're.
discriminating against somebody on age, so I'm gonna be very careful about that. But I do think, I'm just trying to get to the sense that, and what you said is fine, but then if you didn't give me that second one about non-certified, which I don't care that much about, frankly, I'm more interested in that first one that you said.
Our admin was concerned about that though.
Okay.
And that's why I'm bringing it up, because they want to make sure that we have a substitute policy for our teacher assistants and teacher aides, and that we're making sure we get those too, because those are needed and supported subs that we have.
That's not a workaround then.
No, it's not a workaround. Teacher assistants and teacher aides are teachers. A lot of schools I've talked to some other colleagues, and a lot of schools are using, they use kids who come home from college. Like, you're home from college, we'll have you sub, right? You're home for, in May, we always have a lot of need for subs in May, they'll have you sub. So they do that. Schools do, like the kids that are in college doing the work, they have them come home and work. So, where's everyone else's thoughts?
I'm more into trusting the admin to pick who works best for them than us trying to say they need 2 years of college. Personally,
Well, he said 2 years of college
No, I see
for
Right.
workplace experience.
That was for aides and assistants, workplace experience. I was just sticking with your conversation for the teachers. I put 2 years of schooling or vocational training.
When you spoke with the administrators, Frank, did they,
It was debated and just similar.
did they feel strongly about 2 years of schooling or vocational training for substitute teachers, or was that,
It was up in the air. It was a hard conversation because we've done it. But they've also said that they would like to see having somebody with the experience as of 2 years would help if you're doing an upper level. Because they want to have a substitute that they can use K-12, not K-5 or K-4.
I understand
Yeah.
that. Right,
There wasn't clear cut answer though. As it is here, it was the same type of conversation with all the group.
I'm a little concerned about the subs that we use now and whether we would lose any of them
Let me
under
do
this
research on that.
policy.
Because I don't have all the criteria for all the subs, especially the ones from BOCES. So why don't I do the work, see what is actually like, what that looks like? And do like a little kind of breakdown for the policy committee on what that data is,
Who
like
would meet the criteria?
who would meet criteria, who wouldn't, what it currently looks like, what it has looked like in the past for the past like 3 years. Like, do a little bit of a breakdown. Would that be helpful? So that way,
I think it would be, because to Tim's earlier point, if we wanted to sort of grandfather in the people that we have, we can write that into the policy by just saying for any teachers, or substitute teachers hired after the X date. These are the requirements.
One of these things you just typed in, 2 years of higher schooling.
I was just writing it quick and then
Oh,
got
you
it
just
down
did-
again.
all right.
I had schooling, then I was gonna write higher education, but then I got stopped in a
Yeah.
conversation, so
I-
I
I
just,
said post-secondary.
yeah, I just stopped.
So if we don't require the BOCES, them to be on the BOCES list, how are you making sure people are staying up to date on training? Now,
We're using our HR component, which is Karen, and she's writing down who needs it, and then we're kind of getting them trained through the BOCES, through the programs that we have. But it becomes difficult when you hire mid-year, and then you're like trying to figure out who has to do it. So it's like having an easy process that is kind of foolproof makes it a little bit easier.
right, I could see the value of that
Yeah.
part of it,
That's kind of how I feel is
right?
they do all the work for us. We don't have to worry about it.
On this second one, Frank, 2 years of schooling, vocational training, workforce experience, support staff. I know you're just typing this quick. Are those ORs?
That was just me trying to
I
get
know,
my thoughts
I know.
out.
Well, I don't want to I don't want to handcuff anybody, and I do trust people to make smart decisions. But as you know, I mean, we get the news and notes every Friday. Personnel come and go, up and down, all around, and I want to maintain a level of flexibility for you to accommodate all of those needs. But I do really hope that we maintain a standard of expertise among our faculty, even substitutes, even teachers' aides, teachers' assistants. I think that's really important. And then as far as, I'm not that worried about the non-certified.
Understood. I'm actually gonna look something up as you said that. Anyone else? So we'll table this and come back to it after I do the look.
Yeah, just because, like I said, if we're gonna lose some people that we know are good, that we wouldn't want to lose, then I would want to write this differently to protect them.
Which then brings me full circle to the argument of if we have good people,
Yeah, no, I'm
I know.
not disagreeing
It's
with
just
you.
like-
I'm
obviously there's good people without, yeah,
my main
I
concern
would like
is,
to know who we're talking about.
my main concern is, can we run the school?
right.
We have to be
That
able
is my
to,
number one
Like-
concern.
we have to be able to have kids in classrooms that are supervised, hopefully taught. And I know that's a really low bar, but at a
And
minimum,
that's the reality of what substitutes role is for the most, for like a day substitute.
Mhm.
Obviously, if it's someone that's gonna be there all week or 2 weeks, you would hope for a little bit.
right,
more.
of course.
Right,
I think that if there are a lot of people who want to be subbing, then it's like they would automatically only be able to pick qualified people anyway.
mhm.
But putting this, then if we don't have a lot of people or like qualified people, then we're kind of in a bad predicament.
The number one rule in the policy says competent and effective. Like that is the second sentence in the
Yeah, I
policy
see
that's
that.
written. I've also pulled up the NICEAD regulations and commissioners regulations on it as well to add them. And it does say local schools, local institutions can put in anything they would
Additional
want. Yeah.
criteria.
All right, why don't I do the work, look in to see how that impacts us, have further conversations with the admin unit and come back to us. I mean, we don't have a policy now, we haven't had one prior, so. But we've been talking about these and I think it's good just to start putting them into action.
Thank
The
you.
conversation.
So one thing to think about, Frank, sorry to drag this out.
Oh, go ahead.
Paragraph 2, it's at the top of page 2.
Yep.
substitutes without a valid certificate, but who are completing collegiate study.
Yes,
So you could be taking 2 classes a semester. You could be right out of high school, studying elementary education. Under this regulation, if you're employed for more than the 40 days, you just have to be employed in the area in which you're seeking certification.
Right.
So you could be right out of high school under this
someone who's
regulation.
like, let's say my son who's not, but let's say he was
Right,
going for education.
Yep.
And he wasn't,
taking 2 classes
right, so.
at night.
So we had this conversation with admin, and they said, and I will quote, that does not mean that they've taken educational teaching classes to be a solid teacher. They could do one day
Mhm.
and they could do the work, but we wouldn't want them doing 20 days because they don't have the experience of doing 20.
Right, but
So,
under
you
this,
know,
it would be fine.
They would be fine underneath the commissioner's regulations.
Right.
But they didn't feel comfortable in that unless they had the background. But that comes down to them to the competent and effective component of hiring.
They wouldn't hire them for
Right.
that.
Exactly.
Right.
This conversation that we're having here, verbatim, almost of the same conversation we have with
Well,
the 7
you know,
administrators of the
and-
district.
All I know is that the commissioner's regulations are written for a statewide.
Yeah.
Statewide, and we're talking about districts that have 1 million students, districts that have 6 kids. And they're all over the place, and their resource capabilities, and
Mhm.
you name it. That should not be our goal.
No, I agree. I'm
Okay.
just pointing out that under this regulation, it would be acceptable. And you said we can make it more restrictive.
Yep.
Which means we could put our 2-year limitation in there.
We should
I would
put-
like to do an analysis, so I think that would be helpful to the committee, if that's all right. Let me do an analysis of subs, like, let's, as far back as I can go, and then we'll go from, like, at least through COVID. COVID was funky, so let's do like the past 2 years.
Thank you.
Okay, team, we're up to an hour. Do people want to continue and get to the last thing on our list, at least initial discussion, or would you rather wait? I don't know what people's schedules are today.
Good.
I can stay, but,
I can stay for a little bit.
okay. Did you?
Yeah, I'm
you
okay.
Okay. So the last thing on our agenda for today was to start to discuss a possible policy or not for booster clubs after, this is a follow-up. Paige, I'm not sure if you were at the meeting where we had our Title IX person come in to
I
educate
don't know if she
us.
was.
No, I think you missed it, well, you could watch the video. But
Do you
it
know
was,
what month it was?
our last audit committee meeting. So look,
October, right?
May have been September. No, maybe.
I'll look
find out.
around.
I'll find
But
out.
it was during
I'll
audit
look right
committee.
now.
And we had a presenter come in. I found it very educational. It brought up a lot of things I hadn't even thought of. So this kind of came out of that, where we were talking about, it started to get down to talking about Title IX as far as athletics. And we know Title IX covers more than just athletics, but they said you do have to be careful about booster clubs providing things to students, even though it's not from the school necessarily. Just the whole equity, you have to include everything the athlete has, whether it's from this. But then he kind of backed off on it a little bit, so I got a little confused by the end. But
Yeah, I think
the takeaway was we should probably discuss this and see if we need a policy, or just have a discussion about our booster clubs and if we should have a policy to help.
And you did a good job putting up other policies from other districts, by
Yeah.
the way.
If you look in the folder, I just tried to poke around other school districts to see if people had policies in this area. And if you go into that folder, booster 1222 booster club, I just pulled, like, I have some in there from Monroe, Woodbury, Rochester had one that specifically talked about Title IX. Shen had one and didn't talk about Title IX specifically. And then there's one called Sample Booster Club Policy. I don't even know who was drafting that. Like, I couldn't even see
I was
what
wondering if
district.
I did it. I was like, did I do that?
No, I found it, when I Googled it, but I couldn't figure out which district. I don't know, it's just kind of random.
And then we have one from NISBA.
And then we have an NISBA sample, which a lot of these you could tell use that to get started.
Mhm.
And you, when you brought up the Title IX, which makes sense, I had asked the question. I was reading that.
The Rochester
The
one?
Rochester one.
Mhm.
And I just said, what about football? And how do you deal with that?
Well, I thought maybe we should just back up first just to see, like, after people have been able to review these, like,
Oh,
is this
okay.
something we want to
Well, I think
consider moving forward with for a policy with booster clubs? And then if people want to do that, then I guess we can talk about more details of what we want that to look like possibly. What were you gonna say, RG?
so of the policies, the samples that we looked at that were in the folder, I liked the most the Rochester one. I thought it was pretty balanced in terms of not being overly intrusive, but spelling out the district's expectations for how
Yeah.
booster clubs will operate without taking ownership of
Right.
the activities
Yeah,
of the booster club. And that was, Paige, you weren't there, but that was part of the guidance was basically like, you have to kind of draw a line, but between like how much you want to own the activities of the booster club and exercise an oversight function of them versus just letting them do their own thing. Because once you attempt to regulate them, then you kind of own their activities. So I thought the Rochester policy struck the best balance,
mhm.
in terms of the concerns I have.
I agree. When I was reading some of them, like, who's gonna have to do, if we were to do this, who the heck is gonna be in charge of having to do this?
I like the bluntness of, NISBA's was very blunt. There was some very like almost hammers in it. I was like, oh, that's very blunt. So I always ask a lot of my colleagues, and I have, someone who I know who's been an administrator for 30 years, a superintendent, multiple school districts over. And I asked her opinion on booster clubs. I'm like, how have you done this? How's it work? Oh, he goes, it's been a blessing and a curse all at the same time. It's very helpful. People are wonderful. He goes, and here's what he said. He goes, if the microphone's coming to you and you have to answer something regarding a booster club thing that was going on and the news is in your face, he goes, you want some oversight. If they're invoking your name as a district, then you have to have something that guides it. If you don't have a policy by the board that guides you, he goes, then when your name is being used, there's nothing there. So that was like where I kind of came from. If someone's invoking the district's name, there should be at least a guidance for it. And that's why I kind of liked, like, all of them had some type of, at least here's a guide of what the expectation is by the district when using it. And I think it's important that it shows that the articles of organization, is really clearly says, I'm a booster club and my sole purpose is to boost the organization that I'm a part of. So not only athletics though, but we also have music.
Friends of
We
Music.
have Friends of Music, the PTO, PTA,
Yeah.
but they are kind of a booster club, right? They kind
Some
of.
of them
all
I
fall
wasn't
into
sure
things.
how they would fall with how this was written, but yeah, I agree. Conversation to have.
But I think you can add PTA into it,
Mhm.
because I know some school districts might add some, like any booster club or any organization gives money to the district in that regard. I think it's a positive thing to have something. I'm with everyone on this room. I don't want another thing to come on someone's plate that has to approve every little thing that's done.
Mhm.
But also, who says right now that a booster club can't have, an event at a bar where there's alcohol being served or something else, or someone gave me an example of, they're gonna go to Clifton Park and be at Clifton Park asking for money at Clifton Park, but yet all of our students are here in Voorheesville. The person said to me, like, would you allow that? And I go, there's no allowing anything, because we have no oversight. There was yeah. So
I
some
think
guys.
you want to keep it that way.
I agree.
I
So
agree.
you would find value in having a policy that support the
I think
district's
there's a
effort.
policy that at least outlines
Okay.
what a booster club does.
Mhm. I kind of felt the same way.
Have you, I read the letter,
Mhm.
which was you will do this for, very demanding. And is that typical of booster clubs to say, in your budget, we expect following?
I think having a board policy that denotes the expectation of a booster club and what they can and cannot do is an important component.
Yeah, and, you know, one of the topics I think we'll get back to in probably the February audit meeting is athletic spending. It's something we've
Mhm.
talked about in terms of,
And we're actually,
an
so
analysis.
we're doing an audit, we want to talk to you about
yep,
this.
yep,
We're actually having an athletic spending analysis in January.
correct, right,
And also as part of the budget process for next year,
great.
Joe is giving his recommendations at a board meeting as well. That's already been planned.
Good.
So, but that's kind of a different topic when it comes to that, because that's school owned. But I also think it's an important thing too, to spell out in the policy is what should the school pay for? Right? And what should not the school pay for? Like,
Well, that,
there are certain things, and that's what they kind of mentioned when the Title IX stuff was there, is,
right,
you know, if it's field stuff, that should be the school's responsibility to take care of their fields. It shouldn't be someone else's responsibility. We should be paying for those things and make sure it's equitable and appropriate.
yeah, absolutely. But I think that's where we're going in audit, and we've already kind of opened up this can of worms in that
Yeah.
committee. And we do publish the, I know we call it our summary, I can't even remember what name Jim uses for it,
Oh, wait,
but
the line by
the
line.
categories document where we, athletics is a category, so that funding is all public,
That part is public,
yeah.
I think it's,
just the overall, yeah.
but I do think going back to the policy itself,
Okay.
I think having some understanding by the board to give to the school district and to the booster clubs helps get away any gray area, right?
Okay.
Here's a good expectation of what it is, here's what we're looking for, without owning the booster clubs.
I think that's good. I think that the tone that says we appreciate this partnership, this support, we're gonna work together, but you do your thing.
Hmm.
You run your operation. And we have maybe a common goal. Kind of like that philosophy of we want the best things, the best outcomes for our kids and their participation in this particular activity. You have your role and we have ours. And I think common goals with different responsibilities is the way this has to be kind of.
So,
What, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, yeah.
Would the board benefit from a conversation, like, not conversation, that'd be hard, but maybe like a survey to the coaches and to like the people who support, that are being supported by those? What do you want from a booster club?
so I was gonna suggest something along the same.
So you and I were
was
thinking the same way.
I was thinking that, and everyone feel free to tell me this is a stupid idea, a workshop where
Kind of, that's kind of
booster
where,
clubs, Friends of Music, athletic, Friends of Music, PTA are invited, and we actually talk through a draft policy and get input.
Good idea.
I'd actually like to do something different than that. I'd actually like to ask the people that work for the district first, right? I'd ask like the coaches, the athletic
Oh,
directors, the
yeah,
music
yeah,
teachers.
definitely.
I would
Yep.
rather have them first come in and say, what do you want from a booster club? What do you need? And what do you need from the district? Like, because I don't think that conversation's been had as much either. It's like, what do you want the purpose of a booster to be for you as the institution itself? What would you want it to be?
Yeah,
And then when you're having that conversation with them, you have a basis of what your employees
Well,
want.
that's- I
And what,
think that- I agree with you, and I think that's a preliminary step to
Yeah.
a draft policy that we would then
then do that. with them.
use in a workshop with the
I don't
clubs.
think that's a bad idea. Or at least have like the understanding first of what the end goal is by the people who use, and support the kids
Right.
firsthand.
Would it be correct for me to assume that these booster clubs are organized very differently? Some are highly organized, very meticulous, very specific as to what they want, and others not so much.
I think it depends on the booster club.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
I
getting at.
Yeah.
think some sports don't even have booster
Right,
clubs,
like I know like tennis doesn't have one right
Yeah.
now.
No,
I mean, the
but
parents
those that do
help.
exist.
Yeah.
My sense
They're smart.
is some are big, organized, very specific. They have strong-willed people who are heading these things
Yeah.
up, et cetera. And then you have some that are like sitting around the table saying, hey,
Right.
you think we can get the school board to do something for us this year?
Well, and I think some of them, the booster clubs are, we're going to do this, so we have a banquet, we get the kids their, their warm-up shirts, and we do something, and we buy them one thing that they really like.
Yeah.
And then we have other ones that will say, well, I want to put in a turf field with lights.
Right.
And I also want 7 different, factions of teams,
The
like,
magnitude of
Yeah.
their,
and that's, so there's 2 different expectations of booster clubs.
Is this still on?
Yeah, it is. It just tells me that I have to log on and say that I'm still.
so what we're really talking about is managing expectations.
And through policy.
With this particular policy, I think it's not just what the booster clubs can expect from us, but what we would expect of them. Or do we want to not go there?
Well, I think if we're taking on the Title IX conversation, then I think we have to go there.
Okay.
Right, in terms of establishing our expectation that booster clubs will comply with
Right.
Title IX. Right, like that's kind of where I would draw the line.
And I might be not reading this Rochester Title IX policy, paragraph correctly, but it talks about, Title IX, the booster club has some expectations to represent both genders.
That's what they say.
And if you're a football booster club, how do you do that?
Well, I think it's not just looking at like equipment or like if you're doing maintenance to the field through volunteer hours, is that field available to other sports to use? Right? Like, I think you can look at it in different ways. And this is what I think some of what Scott was getting at in the meeting was there are ways to do an analysis of whether you're complying that are not just looking at spending on equipment for one sport that only boys play. And in our district, we have a girl who's played football. So, and maybe that grows,
And
but
Scott even said when Title IX people usually look at this stuff, they usually take football out because it's an anomaly.
Yeah.
Because you have, the concussion management, the helmet's gotta be done, he goes, that is a little bit different. So he even said that one kind of stays on its own, and then you look at everything else.
I remember him saying that now, and that makes sense because I don't see the equivalent. I do say, okay, so if you want to support the football program, do things that are going to have external benefits for other groups
Right.
right,
of a different gender.
right. So lacrosse plays on the football field, right? Girls and boys.
Let's say football wanted to get us a brand new speaker system.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That would benefit not only football.
Right.
That would also benefit any other team.
Right.
That utilizes that field for any games or scrimmages.
Right, including track.
Right.
Or,
Exactly. So it would have wide impact. So that would be a positive impact across the board.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
So it's a work in progress.
Right.
I think it's worth, starting the conversation with the administrators and coaches.
Mhm.
I
Make sure
agree.
we're on the right track.
Yeah, I'll get I'll create like a written kind of document too. So that way it's like, kind of shows what some of the key points are. Maybe I'm trying to envision what it will look like when I'm brainstorming in my head, but at least give you some key points of what they're looking for. Instead of it
With
just
the
verbal.
The coaches.
The coaches and then,
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to create like a little document for you.
Yep.
That kind of as like a white paper kind of idea.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be bullets, Frank. I don't
Yeah.
think you need to
No, I'm not gonna go
Oh,
crazy. Jessica
crazy.
would do it for me.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go crazy.
But just, I
Right.
think having something written
Right,
kind of outlines it a little bit would be better
Yeah.
than just me in here kind of
Mm-hmm.
spouting it out.
yeah, pros, cons, concerns.
Yeah, I think it's gonna
Um,
Yeah, and how our policy could help support their effort, if you will.
be. And I think too.
That's what policies are.
And I have talked
trying
to
to
a few
do.
coaches, and they would say like, having an
It would be
understanding of what the
helpful, right.
expectations are would be very helpful,
So that
All
they're
I
not
know is
having
that-
to do it.
And I think as a parent of some,
Right.
it would be helpful to know what I'm raising money for as a booster club and where's it going, right?
My experience with booster club is it's very, very personality driven. There's usually 1 or 2 or 3 people who are driving this thing.
mhm.
And they can be, some of them are really smart and really aggressive, well organized, all of that stuff. And some you worry about.
But they're passionate, caring, and their heart is in the right
Hardworking.
place because they want to support the
Right,
kids in the
right.
district. Like you gotta, So that's a
I've
positive thing.
run into the booster organizers who are angry too. Okay, they don't like the coach. They're upset about this and that. I mean, so it's very personality driven and it could be issue driven. And it could be very, seasonal. We're really happy this season. We hate next season. You know,
Well, parents groups change too.
That's
yeah,
right, exactly. I mean, it's a.
Yeah.
This
So
is.
that can be, that doesn't have to
Yeah.
just be booster, that can just be.
Yeah,
That could be
anybody.
anybody, right?
That could be on the day, so.
So do you think, what time frame do you want for that?
I want February for that, just because,
So bring it back to our February?
yeah, if you wouldn't
Okay.
mind,
February policy. meeting.
just because I think the second one I can get you back in January, but
Okay, January.
given that break's coming up and then that, I would need a nice 1 month to deal, make sure that we're getting time for people to do what they need to do.
Well, you're talking about the policy, but this idea of sitting down with coaches.
I need
doing a
the month of
workshop,
February for that.
You're gonna wait till then.
I would rather first do the coaches and get like, kind of like the feedback before you do any other work, if you wouldn't mind, with like booster
Right.
clubs or anything. I need at least a month to get time to do that.
Is that gonna be communicated to those who are interested in what our next decision making?
I'm gonna communicate, I'm gonna communicate to all of my coaches and all of my teachers who are being supported by booster clubs and ask them to fill out surveys and have
I'm trying to
conversations.
say, is there a response back to people who are communicating with us?
I guess there's always a response back.
Has that already happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so for our January meeting, we'll look at 5420 for our policy January. We'll relook at substitute implications.
Yeah.
And let's see, is there anything on this list that we want to then prioritize to also do in January? Or I can email you guys if you want to think that through. Unless someone has something off the top of their head.
I just closed my computer, but I see your
Yeah.
quick list. There was a continuing theme across multiple NISBA updates that I'm not remembering right now. Oh, it was like the student restraint policies,
Mhm.
They updated that just so slightly.
but it
But
seems
they
like
keep
they,
touching it a
they
little
keep
bit here or
touching
there,
it.
yeah. Like if you look at the NISBA quarterly updates.
Why do I keep?
So that, I was just concerned, like, why do they keep coming back to it? Maybe we need to tackle
When
that.
when are they coming
They
back?
keep coming, well, we've done their policy, we went through it. They keep coming back to it because the legislation wording changes slightly here or there. And it's like very minute, like.
So it'd be very
almost
fast
minutia.
cleanup,
I would think so. I
Okay.
can't imagine it being
so the restraint.
What are we talking about?
the restraint language.
Like physically restraining students.
It's really for districts that do a lot more.
I
when it comes to that kind of stuff.
don't think it's a big problem
No.
here, but it
Well,
was
they-
just concerning to me that it keeps showing up
Yeah.
in so many
Yeah.
updates.
Take a look.
And then personally, I'd like to tackle graduation policies.
I think we do, because we know we need
Yeah.
a policy and we don't have one.
Let's tackle that
So
one.
we should do it
Which one
before we
you-
get too close.
Which one do you want, if we had to pick one graduation policy to start with, which one's it gonna be the one that we,
There's a lot of those, yes.
right, that's what I'm saying, there's
Yeah,
a ton of them,
the,
and
Well,
they're,
the one that we don't have, hold on, sorry.
I know that that's gonna be a lot of conversation.
Mhm. And on that point, so I just said valedictory class, and on that point, I will say, I was out of school this past weekend. That actually had a trophy case dedicated to their, valedictorian and salutatorian. And I don't think we have anything similar to
I haven't seen anything.
recognize academic achievement,
I haven't seen anything here since I've been here.
but it was really nice. It
Unless
was
there's,
really well
is there a
done.
thing up here, Paige? Is there anything up there that does that?
I know we have, like, down by the gym, we have our trophy
have-
case, we have our athletic records. up
Well, there's
outside
some
the
right here when
gym.
you walk in, there's,
That's what I said. I was like,
The
I need to make
awards, but
sure
I
we
don't-
don't have anything similar.
I don't know what they are though.
But it was really well done, and it got me thinking we should consider doing something similar.
4772.
That's the one I was gonna say. 4772 is graduation ceremonies.
Why don't we tap,
That's one we don't have.
why
that
don't
we're
we start
supposed
with
to.
4772 and then that can open the door for the next ones?
Sure. Okay.
And then if anyone sees any others, because that might be a full
I think
hour
we should
there.
get through all of them
Yeah.
eventually.
Oh, absolutely, but at least if we start with one.
The one that's required.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I have a pretty good vision for January, but as always, I'll reach out before I make the agenda in case things come up.
Yeah.
And if there's ever anything you see page policy wise that you want us to bring to a meeting, just reach out.
Could I ask a huge favor of you in January, like this first week in January? Can you remind me, or second week in January, can we do like an email outreach just to make sure that I'm doing the work that needs to get done for this? Because sometimes like I start doing it and then the policy gets put on the corner of my
Yeah,
desk.
right,
So
right.
if you wouldn't mind doing like a check-in with me to see where I am with it, I would not feel like it's overburdened, like
Let me put it right in my
intrusive at all.
calendar.
It's just, it would be very helpful.
When
to
would
say,
you
"Hey,
like,
where are you with it?
when would you like me to nag you?
The
I'll
second
put
week
it-
of, the second week of January.
Like January 8th?
Yeah, like when we're back that second week, that would be great. Just a little checkup. Hey, how's it going with the policies? Like, I'm asking for you to check on me.
I don't know if this is policy.
Because sometimes it goes, it's like the week before
I
and I go,
know.
oh my gosh, I forgot to
And
get
it's
this
hard to
done."
remember it all after you walk away from the meeting.
It is,
I don't
so,
know if this is policy, but you brought it up at the last meeting about the idea of you're a senior and you're getting towards the end of the year and you got study halls galore.
Mhm.
And there's not a lot of things that are offered for one to spend their time effectively.
Yeah.
Is that a policy issue?
no.
No, that's a scheduling issue.
Does that get into, what we offer?
It's a long conversation that I'd rather not have on video right now.
Okay. Gotcha.
And you understand it better when you watch a child go through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I also think it's not as bad for the seniors, cause if like at the beginning or the end of the day, they have to study all, they can leave.
Yeah.
But for the underclassmen, you're required to stay.
That's a policy matter, right?
I mean, it's not practical for.
I don't even
the
think that's
underclassmen
a
to
policy. I
leave
think that's a
anyway,
practice currently.
Oh, is it?
you know, we don't allow underclassmen, nor do any other school unless there's a workplace
Right.
schedule. Like, if you have a workplace
Yeah.
occupational thing that they're doing, then absolutely they should be leaving. But if not, a junior should have a full schedule.
And 9 times out of 10, like sometimes juniors can leave, but like freshmen and sophomores, they don't have a way to leave anyway. So it wouldn't make a big difference.
If they would just put a Stewart's down the road here.
Should we wrap up
Yeah.
this meeting? Everyone good for this?
Yep.
Okay.